Hello, I'm Africa 54 Managing Editor Vincent McCory in for Esther Githui-Ewart. It's Wednesday, August the 11th. This is Africa 54.
The United Nations sounds the alarm on armed attacks in South Sudan's western Equatoria region. Irregular rain and prolonged drought threaten Cameroon's cocoa farmers. And how technology is helping Nigerian business owners boost sales.
The United Nations says armed attacks in South Sudan's western Equatorial region are continuing. Gunmen have recently attacked and killed residents and left many others nursing serious injuries. Many residents have abandoned the villages in and around Tambura, where houses remain deserted and communities have fled to internally displaced camps. Violence erupted in late 2013 after President Salva Kiir from the Dinka ethnic group fired Vice President Riek Machar and Nuer. The two men have signed many deals to end a war estimated to have killed more than 400,000 people. Despite the peace deal, violence is still raging in parts of the country, according to the United Nations.
It's clear that we are talking about dozens of persons who were killed, dozens of people who remain disappeared, whose family members, whose wives and children are looking for desperately. We are talking about an immense loss of capital. We are talking about crops that are gone, and then what can generate an impending food crisis here in Western Equatoria. We are talking about a big humanitarian crisis with an enormous loss for the peace process and for South Sudan.
The United Nations mission in South Sudan says it is monitoring the situation and pushing for the protection of lives and well-being of the communities. The International Criminal Court's chief prosecutor, Karim Khan, discussed with Sudanese officials Wednesday, accelerating the steps to hand over those wanted by the Hague Court, according to two senior Sudanese government sources. Sudan's former longtime president, Omar al-Bashir, who ruled the country for 30 years until he was ousted in 2019, is among those sought by the ICC. However, the sources did not mention any specific names. The ICC issued arrest warrants in 2009 and 2010 for Bashir, accusing him of masterminding atrocities in his campaign to crush a revolt in the western region of Darfur. While some 300,000 people were killed and over 2 million were driven from their homes, the cabinet has already agreed to extradite those wanted by the court. But the decision needs approval from the cabinet and the Sovereign Council, a joint military and civilian body formed to run Sudan's transitional period following the ousting of al-Bashir. Now, to the conflict in Ethiopia, a militant leader says his group has formed a military alliance with the Tigray forces, now pushing toward Addis Ababa as the fighting that broke out in the Tigray region last year spreads into other parts of Ethiopia. Oromo Liberation Army leader Komse Dirba, also known as Ja'al Maro, told the Associated Press in an interview on Wednesday, quote, "The only solution now is overthrowing this government militarily," unquote, end quote. The military alliance is a further sign of the broadening of the Tigray conflict that began in November after political fallout between Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed and the Tigray leaders who had dominated Ethiopia's government for nearly 3 decades. Thousands of people have been killed in the 9-month war. For more than 6 decades, the cocoa that Richard Ambassa harvested from his plantation in central Cameroon faithfully paid for everything his family needed. Now he's battling drought. Soraya Ali reports.
Richard Ambassa is battling dry soil, dry cocoa trees, and little to no income. The 77-year-old cocoa farmer relied on his plantation in Cameroon to support his family for over 60 years. But now, irregular rains and prolonged dry seasons have killed his cocoa trees and cut the yield from his farm.
There
have been 4 months of drought. You see here, everything is scorched. This used to be a productive plantation. Now, everything is scorched. 3 hectares are destroyed because of the drought. I present to you my 3-hectare plantation. How are my family and I going to live?
Changing weather patterns, partly linked to global warming, have made poor harvests a new reality for many cocoa farmers. That's a big problem for Cameroon. The country is Africa's 3rd largest cocoa producer, behind Ivory Coast and Ghana. The crop generated more than 15% of its export revenues in 2019. But Richard says he can't keep up with demand.
I used to produce 15 bags per year, and now I can't even get 1 bag. You see, I can't produce a bag. I can't.
The United Nations Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change warned in a 2014 report that entire cocoa economies could be devastated if carbon emissions continued to rise. Cocoa trees thrive in humid areas close to the equator that experience bouts of sunshine and heavy rain, like West and Central Africa. 70% of the world's cocoa beans, the main ingredient for chocolate, currently come from the region.
Soraya Ali, Reuters fired that report. Zambia is set to host its general elections on Thursday. The polls are taking place in a tense political environment in the midst of a serious economic crisis, as well as the unfolding COVID-19 pandemic. VOA's Peter Clottey is in Lusaka covering the election. Earlier, I spoke to him about the issues that matter most to voters as they prepare to head to the polls.
Well, the major issues are bread and butter issues. Jobs for the youth, and then recently security, because there have been some clashes between supporters of the ruling party, or cadres as they call them, and the main opposition United Party for National Developmental Alliance, known as UPND Alliance. They have been killed. The ruling party said that the 2 people who were killed were in their offices when they were killed. However, the UPND says that one of the 2 that died is a leading member of the party in the constituency, and that forced the Electoral Commission to impose a no campaign for these political parties in Kanyama constituency, right here in the capital, Lusaka. However, yesterday, the Electoral Commission, after consideration and looking at how things are going, decided to lift the imposed sanctions preventing these political parties from campaigning, especially in this Kanyama constituency in Lusaka.
Well, besides the security issues, we know that these elections and the campaigns are happening in the midst of a terrible 3rd wave or 2nd wave of COVID-19, with this Delta variant spreading across the world. How are the campaigns being conducted? What have you observed?
It's pretty interesting how things are turning out here. Because of COVID, the Electoral Commission came up with some measures to limit the spread of the disease among supporters and even the campaigns themselves. So they encouraged door-to-door campaign. They banned large rallies. They gave specific figures like 50 or below. But these political parties found a way around it. So they decided, okay, if Party A is trying to campaign in an area, they will try to distribute face masks. And with that, large crowds come and then they distribute them. This is how they are going around the measures implemented by the Electoral Commission to limit the spread of the disease. A lot of health experts here have expressed concern about that, but people are really not heeding to it. They are wearing their mask all right. But during the campaign time when they are distributing the so-called mask, there are no social distancing and all that. So health experts are worried that if care is not taken, we could see another round of infections.
If we go back to the issue of the economy especially, there's been a lot of talk about the economy of Zambia in the last 2 years or so, especially during the COVID-19 period. What are the people saying they want done? What are they calling for? And how those who are running for these elections, for this, who are running to be elected during this election, responding?
The ordinary Zambian is complaining that the cost of living has shot up, that inflation is over 20%. All the political parties admit that they are concerned. The government says that the negative impact on the economy by the global coronavirus pandemic has shattered the economy, and they are doing everything they can to bring the economy back to where it used to be, to create the enabling environment for private public partnership to jumpstart the economy, provide jobs, and all that. The opposition is saying that before COVID hit the country was poorly managed. They talked about the Eurobond that the country defaulted in servicing, that the government seemed not to have a solution to the economic problems that the country faces. However, when I interacted with some officials of the government, they outlined the manifesto policies to jumpstart the economy, and saying that the debt was a result of infrastructure development, and that they borrowed not for consumption, but to improve infrastructure to pave way for businesses and economic activities to boom. And they said it's a worthy investment and that it will pay off sooner rather than later. But of course, the opposition sharply disagrees. They think they have a better understanding and have the better qualified people to manage the economy than what the administration is doing. So it remains to be seen how people are going to vote. But people want jobs. They are calling for improved living conditions. They want the inflation to be brought down, and that for the youth to get more jobs. That is the key issues that are being addressed here, and look forward to. We see what will happen on election day.
Well, that was VOA Peter Clote speaking to me via Skype from Lusaka, Zambia. Now, staying there in Zambia, the Federation of Disability Organizations is expressing excitement over the increased number of members to contest in the general election. But the organization, which advocates for the rights of people with disabilities, says it is disappointed with negative comments that sought to undermine the candidacy of their members during the campaign period. Paul Mbewe is the group's vice president, and he tells VOA's Peter Clote that members of the group will continue to monitor the elections to ensure the Electoral Commission fully complies with the court's ruling.
As persons with disabilities, we have grown up listening to some of this negativity, and we are determined that through our media engagement, through community engagement, we are going to ensure that we bring out persons with disabilities so they talk about their issues, we engage with the community so that we dispel some of these myths that people think that if you have got a disability, then you are unable to do a lot of things that people perceive that are impossible for a person with a disability to do.
So disability is not inability?
It's never an inability. And for instance, if you're a member of parliament, if you watch the parliament TV, all they do is just sit there on the bench and talk. So I can just cut your head, put it in parliament, you still function. You don't need the whole body to do such kind of things. And even at parliamentary level, it's not necessary that you need to have a well-built body to be able to run a parliament. You have your parliamentary assistants. You can do a lot of things.
So for the persons living with disabilities, or the persons with disabilities representing political parties across the country,
yes,
12 of them, What do you think are their chances of winning in their respective races?
Well, there are some candidates who we are sure that they have got a 90% chance, whilst others may not make it, but they would have made history and they would make a dent, and I'm sure in the next 2026 elections, their chances might be improved. But what we need now is visibility. Because I remember in the days when we were growing up, people used to fear persons with disabilities. You can't see a person with a disability just walking through without being stoned. But now, because people have come out, people are no longer watching or screaming or spitting when they see a person with a disability. So I'm sure that when more and more persons with disabilities come out, the political parties adopt them, the chances will go up.
There are suggestions that if these persons with disabilities win their elections,
yes,
expectations about their performance might be low. What do you tell people like that?
Performance in parliament?
In parliament and other races as well.
I don't see how their performance can be low.
Or the expectations of them would be low.
I know the public is very, very expectant. They want to see things being done. I'm sure persons with disabilities will go out there and do their best and ensure that they deliver to the people. Because there's a lot of issues riding on them. There's a lot of expectations, and we need to prove that we are capable.
Well, that was viewers Peter Clote speaking with Paul Bewe, Vice President of Zambia's Federation of Disability Organizations. We are excited to hear what you think about Africa 54. Join the discussion on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. We're also streaming our broadcast live on Facebook. Please watch and share our show with your friends. Also, check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Still to come, the coronavirus pandemic is fueling an online shopping boom in Nigeria. We'll have the details after the break.
Join me on the next Straight Talk Africa. As countries worldwide work to get shots in arms, many are running into a problem of trust and vaccine hesitancy. Is fake news to blame? And is misinformation on social media hurting vaccination drives across Africa? We'll speak to Ugandan Dr. Joaquim Chikomeko, also a professional fact checker, as well as a data journalist, to help us separate medical facts from fiction. Also, shutdowns, showdowns, and crackdowns. We'll look at the power struggle between big tech and politicians. Join me, Hayley Adams, on the next Straight Talk Africa.
Virginia Giuffre, an accuser of the late financial and convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein, has filed a suit against Britain's Prince Andrew, alleging that he raped and sexually abused her several times when she was 17 years old, a claim Andrew has consistently denied. But as Henry Ridgewell reports from London, legal experts say it is unlikely that the prince will have to appear in court anytime soon.
In the lawsuit, Virginia Giuffre, who is now 38, says Prince Andrew sexually abused her on multiple occasions when she was under 18 years old. The lawsuit alleges this happened during visits arranged by the convicted sex abuser Jeffrey Epstein, who committed suicide while awaiting trial in 2019. Giuffre's lawyers filed the civil complaint in the US District Court in Manhattan under New York's Child Victims Act. US law enforcement is conducting separate investigations into Jeffrey Epstein's crimes and his accomplices who allegedly helped to groom and traffic women and girls.
In international law, you have to take any criminal cases first before any civil case. So I think it's almost a racing certainty that this case filed by Virginia Giuffre to preserve her rights will actually be stayed until the outcome of the law enforcement investigations in the United States. And only then will it have an opportunity to go forward. But the best form of defense that Prince Andrew's lawyers have got is to delay, to obfuscate, to effectively argue over legal technicalities.
Prince Andrew has consistently denied the claims. As a member of the royal family, he is entitled to immunity from prosecution, says Stevens.
But of course, I think the case is calculated by Virginia Jeffrey's lawyers to ensure that maximum public pressure is put on him not to invoke his right to crown immunity.
In the town of Windsor, west of London, in the shadow of the royal castle, many residents said Tuesday that justice should be served.
I feel if there are any, underlying issues, then they need to be addressed.
If something happens, if a young person is taken advantage of, then clearly that has to be dealt with.
Prince Andrew has already stepped back from royal duties. He has offered to help US investigators.
There's some form of standoff on this issue, whether or not he's prepared, as he said he would, to cooperate with the FBI in their attempts to know more about Epstein's accomplices. The facts are, as far as been reported, that the FBI would appear to want some form of face-to-face interview, and that it may well be that Andrew has offered some form of written interview.
Later this year, Jeffrey Epstein's associate, Ghislaine Maxwell, is due to stand trial in New York, charged with procuring and trafficking underage girls. She has denied the charges.
She was a close friend of Andrew's. If anything were to emerge then that we don't know, that will bring further embarrassment.
Meanwhile, it was announced Monday that a fund to compensate Epstein's victims has paid out more than $121 million to 138 people. Henry Ridgewell for VOA News, London.
The coronavirus pandemic fueled an online shopping boom in Nigeria that resulted in e-commerce sales rising to nearly 66%. That's according to business analysts. Africa 54 technology correspondent Paul Ndiho spoke to Paul Orajiaka, CEO of Alden Toys, a leading manufacturer of African-themed toys, Unity Girl, in perhaps one of the largest and busiest open markets in Africa called Idumota, located on Lagos Island. He says his online sales have boosted his business.
His business. So what do you do in Lagos, Nigeria?
Alden Toys is known for trading on African-themed toys, Unity dolls that promote African culture and also highlight those inherent values and features of the African child. And we're basically known for servicing the big retail stores in wholesale basis across Nigeria and West Africa. We have our South African distribution chain network from where we service the rest of the world with our products. So in Lagos, we'll be doing very well, and then in the time of the COVID, a lot of things has changed, where a lot of movement has actually been restricted. So people actually have to do most of their shopping online, and that's what we're currently trending now. Most business going online, and that's what I've done this as of today.
Talk to us about how you've been able to run your businesses and what lessons you've learned this far.
Before now, everybody was so comfortable doing offline market, where everybody coming to the busy Idumota market, like you know how busy it could get here. But Alden has always known that the future was online. And we started off our online business, not even knowing that COVID was going to hit and hit so strong. So at the time COVID hit, even though our online presence has not been scaled as it is today, at least we had a takeoff point where other retailers, other wholesalers were beginning to play catch up, trying to set up their websites, trying to set up their e-commerce platform. But because Alden has always had this idea that you need to play into the future, prepare yourself into the future, we just wanted to go online, transit into what people were doing, looking at how online was gaining presence in the West. It just made sense to try to adopt those things here. So we were very lucky that before the COVID hit, we already had the platform, the base to transact our business online.
I have some good news for you. I read a report done by Mackenzie Go Digital that says that by 2025, online sales in Africa will contribute to about 10% of sales across the board.
One of the biggest challenges with e-commerce and online trading in Africa is question of trust deficit. So it's hard for people to believe that you could actually transact and get what you bought and deliver to you, or even you're not being shortchanged by putting in your card details or your bank details in the course of making your purchase. But you see, so we have to carefully make customers understand that for our brand and our personality, our character, that trust was key. So it was also very difficult convincing them to have that faith that probably the bad experiences they've had in other online trade was not same with what is applicable in all toys. So that was actually one of the big hindrance, and that's why you see most customers, even up to date, they rather have the option of pay on delivery, whereby they want to see what they've bought before they pay, or they feel their cards are not safe when they log it into your platform. So that actually, in a way, slows down the faith that people will have on e-commerce.
How much of your business is on selling online?
The online business is going to contend with our mainstream business because the volume and access to customer reach we have now is so huge. In our social media networks, we have a huge number of followers who are actually streaming in and buying toys from our online presence. So I think the COVID was like an opportunity that came and blew a sector that was not meant to be a main factor in our business. But today, if you go to our online presence now, we've employed and hired more hands. We've brought in more high-skilled staff, more tech guys. We've actually employed more people into the online platform than we do in the offline. But now when you go to the online, you see it's bustling with activity because the number of staff strength has increased because of the level of transit that has been coming in. And that is also where we always say in our meeting that our online is the future. This online is going to be greater than all our biggest distributors. It's going to be bigger than all our biggest partners, because we are talking about reaching about 1 million people, with direct sales. So it's something that we feel that it's worth the investment we are putting into it, because it's growing leaps and bounds. Like today, if I have to put a number to it, I would say the online is actually about 50-50 of our business. Before, online was just 10% of this business, and 90% was the wholesale and the working customers. But right now, online is contributing as much as 50% of our total revenue in this business.
Thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it.
Well, that was Africa 54's Paul Dio speaking to Paul Orejiaka, CEO of Alden Toys, based in Lagos, Nigeria. Well, and that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. From all of us in Washington, thanks for watching.